A fire that could not be quenched by water. A weapon that burned on the very waves meant to defeat it.
For centuries, the Byzantine Empire held this terrifying secret. A liquid flame that clung to ships and men alike.
Enemy fleets were annihilated. Entire armies were turned back from the walls of Constantinople by this sea fire. It was the ultimate weapon of its age, a marvel of chemical warfare that defied the laws of nature. But its greatest mystery is not what it did. It's that the formula completely disappeared from history. No recipe, no blueprints, only whispers in ancient chronicles and the accounts of its terrified victims. How could a secret so powerful, guarded by an entire empire, simply vanish? That is our investigation. The chronicler unrolls a new scroll. The search for the lost fire begins in the heart of the empire, Constantinople, the jewel of the world. A city of immense wealth, but also a constant target for invasion. For centuries, its very existence depended on controlling the sea, and on a weapon born of desperation and genius. The fire was their shield. It was the great equalizer against numerically superior forces. To lose the formula was not just a military failure. It was to lose the empire itself. This is why the secret was guarded so closely. The reward was survival. The risk was annihilation. The formula was known only to the emperor and a small family of chemists, the Kalinikos clan. A secret passed down from father to son, protected by a sacred oath and the threat of death. To uncover this lost recipe, the chronicler must first understand the men who wielded it. These were no ordinary sailors. They were elite naval engineers, trained in secret workshops. Their ship, the Dromon, was a technological marvel, built for speed and firepower. But the heart of the ship was the Siphon, a bronze tube mounted on the prow like a beast. Chronicles say it would roar before unleashing a torrent of liquid fire. What could create such pressure? This is our first real clue. The weapon wasn't just poured, it was projected with force. This suggests a sophisticated pump, likely worked by hand, and a heated, pressurized substance. So the search isn't for a single ingredient, but for a complete chemical and mechanical system. But what was the fuel? Accounts from the Arab-Byzantine wars offer the next piece of the puzzle. They called it sea fire and noted its sticky consistency. It clung to everything it touched. This implies an ingredient designed to thicken the fuel, to make it more potent and harder to extinguish. A base of crude oil or naphtha mixed with a thickening agent like pine resin, a plausible start. But this combination alone doesn't explain its most legendary property. How did it burn on water? The chronicler now enters the heart of the enigma. Here the manuscripts offer conflicting clues. Some texts mention adding salt. Others speak of quicklime, a substance that reacts violently with water. The quicklime theory is tantalizing. Could it be the trigger that ignited the mixture upon contact with the sea? This would explain its terror, a fire that water itself seemed to create. But it has a flaw. Most accounts describe the fire being lit at the nozzle of the siphon just before it was sprayed. So the fire didn't ignite in the water. It was simply oil-based, lighter than water, and pre-ignited. This solution is simpler, more reliable, and it aligns better with the historical descriptions of the siphon. So we have the fuel and the delivery, a heated, sticky petroleum mixture, projected by a pump. But another mystery remains. The chronicles mention thick, choking smoke and a terrifying roar. Modern reconstructions point to a chemical known to ancient warfare: saltpeter, or potassium nitrate. Added to the heated mixture, it would decompose, releasing oxygen gas. This creates the pressure and the roar. It essentially turns the fuel into a primitive, self-oxidizing propellant. A major innovation. With this final component, the picture of the weapon becomes chillingly clear. A complete system is emerging. The chronicler revisits the stakes. This weapon wasn't just power. It was the key to a golden age. Its secret protected trade routes, funded art, and allowed a culture to flourish while its enemies faltered. And so the pressure to guard it became absolute. No written copies were ever allowed to be made. The knowledge lived only in the minds of a few men, a strength that would become a fatal flaw. But before its end, the weapon had one last great challenge to face: the mighty Rus flotillas. In the 10th century, they swarmed the Bosphorus. Again, the city's fate rested on its liquid fire. The Byzantine fleet, though smaller, was equipped with the Siphon. The battle was swift and brutal. Accounts from the Rus themselves speak of leaping into the water, only to find the fire waiting there. This victory cemented the legend of Greek fire across the known world. It was seen as divine intervention, but its fame also made it a target for spies. Everyone wanted the secret. No one ever got it. This suggests the manufacturing process itself was a key part of the secret, not just the recipe. Specialized bronze alloys for the siphon, exact temperatures for heating, a dozen steps that had to be perfect. Stealing the ingredients was useless without the knowledge of the process. Another layer of Byzantine security. So the puzzle is almost complete. A petroleum base thickened with resin and pressurized with saltpeter. A complex system of chemistry and engineering perfected over generations of intense, state-sponsored secrecy. This weapon was the pinnacle of its time. But time eventually runs out for all empires. The chronicler turns to the final chapter: the fall of Constantinople and the fading of the fire. By the Fourth Crusade in 1204, the empire was weakened from within. Its greatest weapon was used less and less. The city was sacked, not by sea, but by fellow Christians. The keepers of the secret were likely scattered or killed. The fragile chain of knowledge, passed from person to person for 500 years, was broken. When the empire was restored, the full formula could not be recreated. Something vital was missing. They had pieces of the recipe, but lacked the subtle knowledge of the process. The craftsman's touch was gone. And so, when the Ottomans arrived in 1453 with their supercannons, the fire was just a memory. The city fell, and the world's greatest military secret was lost in the smoke and rubble. The investigation is complete. The clues, pieced together from a dozen sources, have told their story. A weapon of genius, created for survival, and ultimately consumed by its own secrecy. So here is the grand design. A three-part system born from the crucible of war. First, the fuel. A base of light crude oil thickened with pine resin for adhesion. Second, the propellant, saltpeter, added to the heated mixture to create immense pressure and its signature roar. Third, the delivery. A bronze siphon and piston pump manned by elite engineers to project the fire. This combination of chemistry and engineering gave the Byzantines nearly 5 centuries of naval supremacy. It was the ultimate defense, a guardian that allowed an entire civilization to thrive in a hostile world. But the story of Greek fire is a paradox. Its strength, its secrecy, was the direct cause of its disappearance. It's a powerful lesson on the fragility of knowledge when it is not shared. A secret dies with its keepers. Today, its legacy lives on, not in a weapon, but in the relentless human drive to innovate. And in the stories we tell, ensuring that the ingenuity of the past is never truly extinguished. The chronicler thanks you for joining this investigation. Every stone and every lost fire carries a story. If you believe these stories must be remembered, subscribe and share to continue the journey. Watch the full story now.